I never thought my quiet suburban life would spiral into chaos when the HOA demanded keys to my private gate, but their overreach turned me into the neighborhood's unexpected hero. How would you react if you discovered your property rights weren't just being violated, but tied to a hidden criminal scheme? The loud banging on my front door jolted me so hard I spilled coffee all over my favorite shirt. Who bangs like that at 7:30 on a Saturday morning? I flung the door open, ready to let someone have it, and found Elaine Carter standing there with a clipboard and a smile that didn't touch her eyes. "Good morning, neighbor." Her voice was overly sweet, but her gaze was icy. "As the new president of the Oak Ridge Meadows Homeowners Association, I'm personally delivering important notices today." She shoved an official-looking envelope into my hands before I could respond. The HOA logo was stamped across the top in bold red letters. "What's this about?" I asked, still wiping coffee off my shirt. Elaine's smile stretched wider. "The board voted unanimously last night. You need to provide keys to your gate within 7 days." My mind reeled. "My gate? You mean my private driveway gate? Why would I give you keys to that?" "Your corner property creates the perfect shortcut between Cedar Lane and Willow Drive," she explained, pointing toward my fenced backyard. "Right now, residents waste nearly 5 minutes driving around your property. As per Section 12.4 of the HOA bylaws, we have easement rights for community access." My blood started to boil. I'd bought this corner lot specifically for the privacy. That's why I installed that gate and fence 2 years ago, to stop people from cutting through my yard. "That's absurd." "This is my private property," I said, keeping my voice even despite my rising anger. "I paid extra for this lot because I wanted privacy. The gate stays locked." Elaine's smile vanished. "I don't think you understand. This isn't a request. The board has already voted. You have 7 days to comply, or we'll start issuing daily fines of $100. She flipped her clipboard around, showing a document with signatures. "Look, every board member agrees. This is happening, whether you like it or not." I recognized some names: Robert Carter, Elaine's husband; Susan Harper, who lived in the biggest house on Willow Drive; Daniel Kim, who never spoke at meetings but always voted with Elaine. "I need to review my property documents," I said, forcing calm. "I don't believe the HOA has the right to demand access to my private driveway." Elaine's eyes narrowed. "Check all you want. Section 12.4 is clear. 7 days or the fines start." She turned and walked down my path, calling over her shoulder, "And by the way, your hedges are 3 inches too tall. You might want to trim those before our next inspection." I shut the door and leaned against it, hands trembling with rage. Who did she think she was? I'd bought this house 4 years ago, before most of these people even moved into the neighborhood. Later that afternoon, I was pulling weeds in my front garden when I heard the familiar rumble of Robert Carter's huge black SUV. Instead of driving around the corner like normal, he slowed near my property. I watched, stunned, as he deliberately drove onto my grass, cutting across the corner of my lawn to save maybe 10 seconds. When he saw me staring, he waved and smirked before speeding off. I stood there, trowel in hand, floored. Had they been planning this all along? Was this why Elaine wanted my gate keys? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept picturing Elaine's smug face and Robert driving over my lawn. At 2 a.m., I got up and went to my home office, pulling out all the paperwork from when I bought the house. I spent hours poring over the property deed, plat maps, and original community documents. As dawn crept through my window, I found it in the fine print of my deed. My property was purchased before the HOA was formed, with specific language protecting my driveway as private property, no easement provisions. The HOA had no right to demand access. Just as I was about to head to bed, I heard another vehicle outside. I rushed to the window and saw Susan Harper's red sedan slowly driving across my sideline, leaving fresh tire tracks next to Robert's. This wasn't just Elaine and Robert. The whole HOA board was waging war on my property. As Susan drove off, I made a decision. I wouldn't just fight this, I'd win, no matter what. Standing there in my pajamas at 6 a.m., clutching my deed, I knew my peaceful life in Oak Ridge Meadows was over. The battle for my driveway had just begun, and I had no idea how messy it would get. They absolutely cannot force you to give them keys to your gate, Attorney Michael Bennett said, adjusting his glasses as he reviewed my documents. His office smelled of old books and coffee. Your property deed predates the HOA by 2 years. The grandfather clause in the original community documents protects pre-existing property features. Relief flooded me. So I can just tell them no? Michael leaned back. It's not that simple. While they can't legally force you, HOAs have ways of making life difficult: selective rule enforcement, constant inspections, fines for minor violations, social pressure. He counted off on his fingers. I've seen HOAs bully people into moving. My stomach nodded. They're already driving across my lawn. What else could they do? I'm not moving. This is my home. Then we fight smart, Michael said, grabbing a legal pad. First, send a formal cease and desist letter about the trespassing. Second, install security cameras to document everything. Third, attend the next HOA meeting with copies of your deed. And finally, be ready for backlash. I paid Michael his fee and drove home, a plan forming. At the hardware store, I bought 4 high-def security cameras and spent the afternoon installing them to cover every angle of my property. As I mounted the last one, I spotted Elaine walking her small, yappy dog. She stopped when she saw me on the ladder. Security cameras? She called, her voice dripping with fake concern. I don't recall seeing an approval form for those. All exterior modifications need board approval, you know. These aren't modifications, I replied calmly. They're temporary security devices to document people trespassing on my property. Her face turned red. The board meeting is Thursday evening. I expect to receive your gate keys then. Actually, I'll be there, but not with keys, I said. I'll be bringing copies of my property deed that exempt my driveway from any HOA easements. Elaine's dog barked wildly as she gripped the leash tighter. We'll see about that, she snapped, storming off. The next morning, I found my mailbox knocked over, the post snapped at the base. Later that day, my attorney's cease and desist letter was delivered to every HOA board member by certified mail. Their response came that night. I was washing dishes when I heard a crash outside. By the time I reached my front door, I only saw taillights vanishing around the corner, but my garden lights were smashed. I checked my security footage. It clearly showed Robert Carter and his teenage son Ethan getting out of their SUV, stomping on my solar lights, and knocking over my bird bath before driving off. The next day, I took the footage to the local police station to file a vandalism report. We see this with HOAs all the time, Officer Ramirez said, taking my statement. The damage is under $500, so it's a misdemeanor. We'll talk to them, but don't expect much. When I got home, a bright orange HOA violation notice was stuck to my door. Unapproved security cameras, $75 fine. Unkempt lawn debris, $50 fine. Total due, $125 within 14 days. The lawn debris was the broken lights and mailbox Robert and Ethan had destroyed. That evening, I printed flyers with screenshots of Robert and Ethan vandalizing my property, just the images, date, and timestamp. At 10 p.m., when the neighborhood was quiet, I delivered one to every house in Oak Ridge Meadows. The next morning, my phone blew up with texts from neighbors, some supportive, others accusing me of stirring trouble. By noon, Elaine sent a community-wide email calling me a troublemaker spreading doctored images to slander respected community members. I was making lunch when I heard engines outside. Through the window, I saw 3 cars at the edge of my property: Elaine's white sedan, Robert's black SUV, and Susan's red car. One by one, they drove across my lawn, leaving deep tire tracks, honking and laughing as they sped off. My hands shook as I recorded them, but they were already gone. Then my neighbor Lydia Brooks from across the street called. I saw what they did, she said, furious. This isn't right. Several of us are talking about attending the next HOA meeting to support you. Her kindness nearly brought me to tears. Thank you, Lydia. Don't thank me yet, she warned. Elaine's been president for less than a month, but she's already alienated half the neighborhood with her power trips. Most people are just too scared to stand up. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the tire tracks on my lawn. This wasn't just about a gate anymore. The HOA board was waging war for daring to defy them. I decided if they wanted access to my driveway so badly, I'd give them something they'd never forget on my terms. I opened my laptop and researched driveway security measures. When I saw retractable security spikes, a grin spread across my face. The HOA had no idea who they were dealing with. $500 for retractable security spikes, I muttered, staring at my screen. The price was steep, but after 3 more cars drove across my lawn that morning, it felt worth it. Delivery would take 2 weeks too long. A knock at my door interrupted me. It was Mr. Thompson, the 78-year-old retired engineer from the end of the street. "Saw those jerks driving across your property," he said, skipping pleasantries. "Been watching this nonsense for days. Disgraceful." "Come in," I offered, grateful for an ally. Mr. Thompson settled into a kitchen chair. "Back in my day, we handled problems like this ourselves. I've got ideas that won't cost you $500. Over coffee, he sketched plans for a homemade spike system. "Hydraulics are simple. I've got most parts in my garage from old projects. Could have it installed this weekend if you're interested." "That'd be amazing," I said, studying his detailed drawings. "One more thing," Mr. Thompson added, tapping the table. "My grandson works for Channel 5 News, investigative reporter. Loves stories about HOA bullies. How soon can he come by?" "Tomorrow morning," Mr. Thompson said with a sly grin. That evening, I got an official-looking letter from the HOA detailing 6 new violations, including excessive dirt on driveway and unapproved bird feeder color, fines totaling $450. I called Lydia immediately. "How many neighbors were talking about supporting me?" "At least 12, she replied. "Elaine's made enemies. The Martinez family got fined last week because their Christmas lights were up January 3rd, one day past Elaine's random deadline. Can you get everyone together tonight?" "My place, 8 p.m. By 8 o'clock, 14 neighbors filled my living room. I passed around copies of my deed, the cease and desist letter, and vandalism photos. "They've targeted all of us," Mrs. Martinez said. "Last month, Robert parked his boat in front of my house for a week while they had guests. Daniel Kim threatened to report my son's basketball hoop unless I voted for the new landscaping contract," Mr. Shaw added. "The company belongs to Robert's brother." As stories poured out, frustration turned to resolve. "We plan to document all HOA overreach, attend Thursday's meeting together, and speak up. And one more thing," I said, explaining the news crew coming tomorrow. The next morning, the Channel 5 News van parked outside my house just as Elaine walked her dog past. Her face paled when she saw the camera crew. "We're filming a report on HOA disputes," the reporter explained when Elaine demanded answers. Specifically, board members vandalizing private property and demanding unauthorized access. "That's defamation," Elaine sputtered. "You can't film here without permission." "We have the homeowner's permission," the reporter replied. "And nothing we're reporting is defamatory if it's true and documented." Elaine stormed off, dialing her phone furiously. The news segment aired that evening, HOA Overreach, When Community Governance Goes Too Far. It showed my footage of Robert vandalizing my property, interviewed neighbors about the board, and explained my legal right to my driveway. Minutes after, my phone rang. It was Robert, his voice shaking with rage. "You've made a huge mistake," he growled. "This isn't just about a stupid gate anymore. We're having an emergency board meeting tonight, and you'll regret this publicity stunt." Late that night, while installing the homemade security measures with Mr. Thompson, I noticed a car parked down the street, someone watching my house. The silhouette looked like Ethan Carter. As we finished securing the retractable spikes beneath my driveway, Mr. Thompson patted my shoulder. "Ready for the test?" I pressed the remote, and metal spikes rose silently from hidden compartments. "Beautiful," Mr. Thompson whispered. "They won't know what hit them." I went to bed feeling ready but uneasy. The car stayed until dawn. In the morning, I found my front door splattered with eggs and ketchup. My security camera was spray-painted black, but not before capturing Ethan's face clearly. When I got to work, my boss called me into her office. "Is there something you need to tell me?" She slid a printed email across her desk from Robert Carter, claiming I'd threatened his family and was unstable, sent to my entire company. "This is retaliation," I explained, showing her the news segment. "I never threatened anyone." She nodded. "Be careful. I've dealt with power-hungry HOA boards. They fight dirty." When I got home, my front yard was filled with neighbors and police cars. Lydia ran to me as I pulled up. "They tried to remove your gate. Robert and Daniel came with power tools while you were at work, claiming HOA authority to remove unapproved structures. Mr. Thompson caught them on video and called the police." Officer Ramirez waved me over. "Your neighbors witnessed attempted destruction of private property. With your previous report and this many witnesses, we're taking it seriously now." As she explained, I saw Elaine's white sedan drive slowly past. Our eyes met. She didn't look smug anymore. She looked scared. The HOA meeting was tomorrow night. Whatever happened there would decide if this war ended or escalated. I was ready. Neighbors packed the community center for the HOA meeting. I'd never seen such a turnout. Elaine sat at the board table, looking uneasy, as Officer Ramirez took a seat in the back. "First item," Elaine announced, avoiding my gaze, "we need to address property access rights for the corner lot on Cedar Lane and Willow Drive." "You mean the illegal demands for my gate keys and the vandalism against my property?" I asked loudly. Daniel Kim jumped in. "The board voted unanimously to exercise our easement rights under Section 12.4. I stood, holding my documents. "Except no such easement exists for my property, purchased before the HOA was formed. My lawyer and the county records confirm this." "We should table this," Robert said quickly. "Move on." "No," Lydia called out. "We're here for answers about board conduct." 14 homeowners signed a petition demanding explanations for selective enforcement and illegal actions. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as Lydia passed the petition to Susan, who looked uncomfortable. "This meeting will follow procedure," Elaine insisted, banging her gavel. "The board has determined the board was caught vandalizing private property," Mr. Shaw interrupted, "and attempting to destroy a gate without permission." The room erupted. Officer Ramirez stood, silencing the crowd. "I'm not here officially, but given recent events, I thought it prudent to observe." Elaine's face flushed. "This is a closed community matter." Actually, a man I didn't recognize stood. "HOA meetings must be open to all homeowners per state law." "I'm Nathan Cole, attorney for several homeowners here tonight." Robert whispered to Elaine, who shook her head. "I move we dismiss the demands regarding the corner property gate," Susan said suddenly. "New information suggests we overstepped." "Second," Mrs. Martinez called. "We can't just—" Robert began, but Elaine cut him off. "All in favor?" Hands rose, including Susan's and Daniel's. Robert sat, arms crossed. "Motion passes," Elaine declared. "The request for gate access is withdrawn." A small win, but I wasn't done. "What about the vandalism, harassment, and false violations?" "Robert and Ethan destroyed my property, and Daniel tried to remove my gate." Robert stood. "You can't prove anything. Those images could be anyone." Actually, a voice from the doorway said, "We have witnesses and clear footage." The Channel 5 reporter stood with his cameraman. "We're doing a follow-up on HOA accountability. Mind if we film this public meeting?" Elaine looked faint. "This meeting is adjourned." One moment, Nathan Cole interrupted. "Per your bylaws, Article 7, Section 3, a member motion takes precedence over adjournment if seconded." "I move for an emergency recall election of the board," Lydia declared, "based on documented violations of HOA rules, state law, and ethical conduct." "Second," called several voices. What followed was 2 hours of heated debate. Neighbors shared stories of intimidation, selective enforcement, and shady finances. The landscaping contract increased 40% when it went to Robert's brother's company, Mr. Thompson said, distributing financial records. And the reserve fund dropped by $30,000 with no accounting. By the end, An emergency election was scheduled for the next week, and a financial audit was approved. As people left, Susan approached me. "Check the Willow Drive development proposal at the county records office," she whispered. "That's what this is really about." The next morning, I went to the county records office. After an hour, I found it. Blueprints for a 38-unit townhouse development behind Willow Drive, with the only viable construction access through my property. The developer? Carter Construction LLC, owned by Robert Carter. It clicked. They didn't want a shortcut for neighbors. They needed access for construction equipment that couldn't fit through the narrow roads. When I got home, I saw Elaine's white sedan approaching. Suddenly, she sped toward my driveway. "No!" I shouted, fumbling for my spike remote, but her front tires were already crossing. I pressed the button just as she reached the hidden spikes. A loud pop echoed as her tires burst, her car grinding to a halt. Elaine stumbled out, furious. "You lunatic. Look what you did to my car." "You're trespassing on clearly marked private property," I replied, pointing to my new "No Trespassing" and "Private Property" signs, as documented by my security system. Right on cue, the Channel 5 news van turned the corner. "You planned this," Elaine screamed, noticing the camera. "You set me up." I protected my property from trespassers after multiple documented incidents, I corrected, showing my phone with footage of her driving across my lawn the previous week. "The spikes only deploy on my private driveway, which you have no permission to use." The reporter approached with his microphone. "Mrs. Carter, care to explain why you're driving on private property after the HOA withdrew its demands? Or comment on the development plans we've uncovered involving Carter Construction?" Elaine's face went pale. "No comment," she muttered, pulling out her phone. "I need to call my husband." I smiled, knowing Robert had bigger problems. The financial audit was underway, and the development proposal was public. As Elaine made her call, neighbors emerged, drawn by the noise. Lydia gave me a thumbs up, and Mr. Thompson chuckled at Elaine's stranded car. For the first time in weeks, I felt I'd truly won, not just protected my property, but exposed the corruption plaguing our community. The emergency HOA meeting packed the community center beyond capacity. Chairs were brought in, and people stood against the walls. I arrived early, setting up my laptop and projector with Mr. Thompson and Nathan Cole beside me. Robert and Elaine hadn't been seen in the neighborhood for 3 days since the spike incident. Rumors said they were with lawyers. "They'll be here," Lydia whispered, sitting next to me. "Robert has too much at stake with that development." Right on cue, Robert and Elaine walked in with a stern man in a pricey suit. Robert looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. Elaine's makeup couldn't hide her fatigue. The temporary chairperson, Mrs. Martinez, called the meeting to order. First item, the financial audit results. Nathan Cole stepped to the podium. The preliminary audit uncovered issues. Over the past year, $74,000 of HOA funds were transferred to vendors without proper documentation or board approval. Gasps filled the room. The largest recipient was Greenfield Landscaping, which received $42,000 for work that appears unperformed. Nathan projected bank statements. Greenfield is registered to James Carter, Robert Carter's brother. Robert jumped up. "This is a witch hunt." "Those payments were authorized." "By whom?" Nathan asked. "The full board never voted. Only you, Elaine, and Daniel signed off. Daniel has provided a sworn statement that he was told these were emergency expenses." Daniel, sitting far from Robert, stared at the floor. "Now, the Willow Drive development project," Nathan continued, changing slides. The suit-clad lawyer stood. "My client has no obligation to discuss private business matters here. Your client used his HOA position to attempt unauthorized access to private property for commercial gain," Nathan replied. "That's relevant to this community." I stepped forward with my flash drive. "May I?" Mrs. Martinez nodded. I plugged in my drive and opened the files. These plans show a 38-unit townhouse development behind Willow Drive. The only feasible construction access is through my property. Robert knew this when he bought the land 6 months ago. On screen were emails between Robert and the Planning Commission discussing the access issue. How did you get those? Robert demanded, face reddening. Public records request, I explained. Everything submitted to the Planning Commission is public. Robert's lawyer whispered urgently, but Robert waved him off. Yeah, I'm developing that land. So what? It'll increase property values. You should thank me. By destroying my property and bullying me into giving up my rights? I asked. A stunned silence fell. He just admitted everything, Lydia whispered. No, you didn't, I said quietly. You demanded my gate keys under false HOA authority. You never mentioned development, construction access, or compensation. Robert looked around, realizing his mistake. That's not what I meant. Elaine tugged his arm, trying to get him to sit. The Planning Commission has been notified about the coercion, Nathan continued. They're reviewing whether the permits were obtained properly. The meeting lasted another 2 hours. The community voted overwhelmingly to remove the board and elect temporary officers until formal elections. A full forensic audit was approved, and a committee formed to revise the HOA bylaws to prevent future abuses. As people left, Susan approached me. I knew something felt wrong, she said. I'm sorry I went along with it. Why did you? I asked. She looked away. Robert said your property was lowering everyone's values, that your refusal was selfish. I never checked if it was true. In the parking lot, Robert confronted me. You've ruined everything, my development, my reputation. This isn't over. Actually, it is, a voice said. Officer Ramirez approached with another officer. Robert Carter, we have a warrant for your arrest on charges of embezzlement, fraud, and criminal mischief. As they led Robert away in handcuffs, Elaine stood by their car, frozen, watching her husband disappear into the cruiser. He convinced me we were doing the right thing, she said suddenly, not looking at me. The development was supposed to solve our financial problems. She got into a rental car, hers still had flat tires, and drove off. I wondered if we'd see her again. Walking home under the stars, I finally felt I could breathe. The battle wasn't fully over, but I knew I'd won the war. 6 months later, spring flowers bloomed across Oak Ridge Meadows, including in my restored front yard. My security camera stayed, but the spikes were gone, though neighbors still teased about them. Remember when Elaine's tires went pop? Mr. Thompson would say, mimicking the sound with glee. At 78, he'd become a neighborhood legend for helping with the spikes. The new HOA board operated transparently, meetings were recorded, minutes posted online, and finances required dual approval, reviewed monthly by a resident committee. Robert had pleaded guilty to reduced charges of financial mismanagement and paid restitution to avoid jail. The development project was sold to another company, which found alternative access routes. Elaine had filed for divorce and moved away. Daniel apologized to the community and stepped back from HOA involvement. Susan helped create new bylaws, using her experience to spot potential loopholes. I was sipping coffee on my porch when Lydia stopped by with a newspaper. You made the front page again, she said. The headline read, State Legislature Proposes Corner Lot Protection Act After HOA Scandal. The article detailed how our dispute sparked a statewide conversation about HOA powers and homeowner rights, with proposed legislation to protect properties like mine from forced easements and clarify HOA limits. They're calling it the Spike Law, Lydia laughed. As we chatted, a moving truck pulled up to Robert and Elaine's old house, empty since their departure. New neighbors, Lydia noted. Hope they're better than the last ones. Later, I was trimming my hedges, keeping them at the HOA-approved height, when a couple approached from the formerly Carter house. Hi, the woman said cheerfully. We just moved in. I'm Rachel Park, and this is my husband David. We shook hands, and I welcomed them. We heard this place has quite a history, David said. Something about the previous owners and a gate dispute? I smiled. It's a long story, but it taught everyone about respecting boundaries and standing up for what's right. We're excited to be part of the community, Rachel said. The HOA president, Lydia, I think, stopped by with a welcome packet and explained the rules. She seemed really nice. Lydia's the best, I agreed. Things work differently here now. The HOA helps the community, not controls it. As they walked away, I saw a familiar car drive slowly past Elaine, looking older, staring at me. Our eyes met briefly before she sped off. That evening, I received an unexpected letter with no return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. "I'm sorry for what we did," Elaine wrote. "Robert convinced me it was for the neighborhood's good, but I should have questioned him. The development was failing, and he saw your property as the solution. That doesn't excuse us, but I regret my part. Sometimes standing up to bullies means standing up to those closest to you." I folded the letter, feeling unexpected closure. The new HOA president had asked me to join the board, but I'd declined. Now, I thought maybe it was time to help shape our community's future. The next morning, I installed a new gate with a keypad for emergency services. No more spikes, just clear boundaries and respect. As I finished, neighbors walked by, waving and smiling. Mr. Thompson hobbled over with his cane. "Nice gate," he said, but the spikes had more style. We laughed, recalling how one stand against unreasonable demands had transformed our community. Looking at my peaceful property and friendly neighbors, I realized that defending my boundaries had helped everyone find theirs.